Okay, welcome to the podcast, number 26, I'm pretty sure, episode 26. And today we want to talk about something that might be a bit touchy of a subject, is how to deal with a client that is maybe a little bit bad, a bad fit client. Because I think everybody, customers are great, and they essentially, it's helped me get where I am, it's helped John get where he is, it's helped businesses grow. But sometimes there's just not a fit. It's the same in any sort of relationship, be it a personal relationship. Sometimes you're not going to get on with every single person, and it's the same in business. There's just things that you just don't fit, and they will fit somebody else. There will be a personality fit with somebody else, and it could be clients, it could be staff, it could be whatever. But it's really about, I think, trying to explore in this podcast, maybe some of the things that you can, it triggers a client that's not a fit. How do you, is there any aspects of like how you deal with them? Because I think there'll be a lot of businesses out here that are still kind of continuing and working with a client that they don't really like, or they don't feel that there's a fit, and the relationship's not great, and they're maybe, going home with sleepless nights. And then like how do you actually make that change from it, and probably be a little bit proactive at the start of like how do you actually make sure that you don't bring a client that doesn't fit your needs on from the start. So I think, John, if you want to kind of kick us off, you had a recent experience, just to throw you right under the bus. Tell us who it was.
not like a really hard challenging topic or anything. So yeah, I suppose just a bit of background to that. When I started my business 4 years ago, I would have took on any type of business. Literally, if somebody had said to me, we're looking for someone to like kind of practically like clean the windows, I would have been like, yeah, I'm your guy. So it's a naivety in the sense of when you start a business, you're thinking, I need every pound. Every pound is going to make a massive difference to my business.
Yep.
And you become a busy fool. So you're running about doing work that you're not maybe specialised in. That can lead to client disappointment. It can lead to you damaging your reputation. So you look at what you can lose. That's why I would really think that you do need to have a filter. You have to have something that says, these are not clients that are going to work for us. Also now, 4 years isn't a long time in business, but in 4 years, I've learned a lot about what the kind of right clients and the wrong clients are. Mm-hmm. So what I'm kind of looking at now is my ethos with how we take on a client. First of all, I want to make sure that is that client going to directly align with my mission? So I want to build a certain type of company. I want to have a certain type of review, a certain type of client relationship. And I'm not interested in building relationships that are lopsided or relationships that are a bad fit for my team. I've took on clients that are abusive to staff. I've took on clients that have insane expectations. Like I've gave you 10 quid, I expect to be able to walk on the surface of bathwater. Ain't happening. Yeah. But in that kind of naivety, you're kind of like going along and saying like, it's easy to close those kind of sales because you can kind of just go, yeah, we'll do that for you. But it's so dangerous. Mm-hmm. So now what I've got is like a filtration process where I'm listening for what the client's saying, and when they say things like, we were thinking we'd spend, say, £4,000 on the website, and we would expect to see back £100,000 in the first 6 months, and I'm like, okay, so how much is going into marketing? Who's maintaining the marketing campaigns? What's the spend of the marketing? Is that $4,000 all the budget, or is that just the website budget? How much of that do you expect to come from our side of the fence? Mm-hmm. So first of all, that's me kind of addressing that their expectation is beyond what's kind of normal. Now, what I would kind of argue is, is that not super negative, John? You're not saying that you're going to like grow the absolute living daylights out of this business.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if they hire me, they hire my team, I know that I can do a good job for them and I can take them further down the road to what their goals are. But I don't sell magic beans, so I don't have some power ordained by God where I can wave my hand over something and it becomes an amazing idea. Likewise, I have no control over their margins or their business model. So I don't really want to get into a scenario where I'm making guarantees. I know like the services where we're strong and I stick to them now, and I'm very, very adamant about not taking on things that are a bad fit. So that's kind of like my first filter. Second filter is actually like once maybe the relationship starts, I observe how the client interacts with me and how they interact with my team.
Yeah.
So I've heard clients kind of saying things where they go, oh well, could you give us like 10 testimonials? You know, could you give it 10 people to phone? And I'm thinking, why 10? That seems quite extreme. Or, oh, I'm going to phone around all your clients and do whatever. But it's almost said as if it's a threat. It's like a barb, the way they say it. And you're thinking, right, well, that's a red flag. You don't say it's a red flag, but you're like, that's a red flag. And then it's like they start nitpicking, you know, about every wee line, every wee sort of thing like that. The price is a big thing. Can you sharpen your pencil? Can you sharpen your pencil? And I'm like, these are all communication methods that are telling me that you can't afford this service. We're probably not going to get along. It's not going to be a good fit. And I don't want that. I don't want to be trying to push someone forward that I don't feel that I want them to win. I want to work with people where it's like, I respect your background. You know what I mean? So if I was working with you, it's like, I know your background, I know your kind of ethics, I know what you're like as a person. So it's like, I'm trusting and I'd be happy to kind of like give my process over to you to say, do your thing.
Yeah.
But if I had that suspicion where I'm like, I don't think it's worth this, or could you do it for £3 less an hour? I'm kind of twiddling, and I'm thinking I'm making the deal better and it's a negotiation. But really what I'm doing is I'm damaging the relationship to the point where the person's probably not going to be super enthused about my project anyway. And I think it's a naivety on a client side if they're thinking that an agency is going to like really have their back if they're abusive to that team, because it's like the other people doing the work. So if that team member's like, oh, I don't like them, even if they don't say it, it's like it massively has that negative impact. So I'm like, there's some of my filters that I'm trying to kind of look for that, and obviously later in this episode we can talk about, well, what do we do when we identify that, because getting them out the funnel is actually very, very difficult without offending the living daylights out of someone.
Something that you mentioned there, and I was quite intrigued. How do you, so it's managing expectations. I probably would say managing expectations is one of the key things basically in our industry, and because they're trying to get, it's marketing and sales, they're trying to get a certain amount. So how do you go about managing expectations from the outlet? What do you ask them specific questions?
Yeah, definitely. I've kind of stole some questions from value-based pricing. So if you will have read, and if anyone's interested in it, do read about value-based pricing. So I wouldn't say I bill based on value-based pricing because it tends to put the price a lot higher. But what I try to do is I look at it and I say, is what this client's asking for feasible? So I would ask a question like, what do you want to achieve with this project? Like, what main challenge are you trying to address, Mark? I want more appointments in my shop. Okay, more appointments in your shop. How many appointments do you get right now? Now that might sound like a really sort of like low guard standard question, but what you tell me there is quite interesting. So say you go, oh, we get like maybe 2 a month, and I'm like, that's quite low. And then I say, and what would be the expectation once the site is built? I'd be expecting 10 a week. And I'm like, so right now, with your entire team, all your marketing budget, everything you're doing 2 a month. But buying one asset, we're now expecting 10 a week. That's quite a jump. But then I can't say that yet because I'm not actually sure he's got a marketing budget. So I go, how much are you spending on marketing? Or nothing. Or X. Okay, so do they have a similar target? That marketeer has 10 a week, or like, what's their target? What would success look like? So I'm trying to kind of feel around what their perception and expectation is, and when they kind of go wildly outside the lines of the norm, I would say that seems really high for that. Are you basing that on anything? Like, have you seen that with a similar brand? Or we had this with a joint client actually that we both serviced, and it was like, well, we can get a cost for acquisition for X. And I'm thinking, but that doesn't mean we can get it for X now. That was 4 years ago. Maybe the cost has changed, because let's say I'm optimising Web Design Glasgow as an AdWords, it might cost me £7.99 in 2008, but in 2021 it might be like 56 quid a click, because it's a market, it changes. So I'm trying to listen out for the kind of triggers where it's what they're saying to me is out with what I would class as a normal expectation. And anywhere I see it, I check it. not by like, that's ridiculous. I don't say that. I just go, is that realistic for what it is? So let's say it's another thing. So you say you work in the stock exchange, and I've got $4,000 to spend, right? What would be a normal yield return for the money that I would think is good?
Yeah.
So anything above 8% I would think is good. But you would never say to a broker, there's $4,000, I expect $40,000 back in 3 months, and I don't want any loss, and you know what I mean? It's like, so it doesn't really transpose into other sectors.
Yeah.
So when I'm asking the client the questions, really what I'm trying to hear is, where are their expectations? But also, does that align with what I've experienced?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking at my past 19 years and I'm thinking, I've worked with some pretty large scale clients, and that's not feasible. And the other thing I can ask as well is, how old is the business? Because let's say you're a brand new startup, you're not really starting for the same position. You've got to build your brand, establish yourself, nobody knows who you are. So like me taking Market Mavens and saying, right, this is what I could do for you, is very different to, hi, my name's Patrick Jackson, I've got a brand new marketing agency and I want to do what Market Mavens has done. Well, good luck. He's had 6 years or whatever pushing that, and now we're going to market on top of that, whereas you're going to start for zero base. You kind of need to go through what he went through. Now, I'm not saying you can get there faster with the right kind of clever campaigns and stuff, but you kind of have to do it. It's just like a safety net.
It's funny you say that. So one of the questions that I asked, now all the questions are great and I ask them as well, but one of the questions I ask, and it's like, it's a funny one, because I'll say, what do you think needs to happen to get that success? Now that's a hard question, because they'll go, well, you're the marketing expert. That's what I'm paying you for. But it's a good thing for no. What I'm trying to understand here is like, what do you kind of want to do? So that's where they turn around and go, well, I expect the website to be built, and then I'm going to be just getting 10 leads a month. Well, no, it doesn't exactly work like that, because the website's just a website. You need to do something else, and that's where you can kind of understand where the expectations lie. Do they really fully understand? So then comes in, that's where the whole process comes into an educational thing. And like through negotiations, there's some cowboy out there saying, we can do that. 10. Just to get the business.
10? 15?
Aye.
And it's like, cool. And they might get a month's retainer, 2-3 months retainer out of it.
Yeah.
But the other side, they're getting a 1-star review, their reputation's slaughtered, and it's like, just in case it's kind of eluding anyone, that's really, really, really bad for a brand.
They're doing it just to get business. They're desperate for business. I've seen it so many times. They're desperate for business, and they're going, oh yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah, oh of course, we can add that in, no problem. We can do this. It's best just to be from the outset. So this is exactly what we're going to do, and actually we do this because there's a proven process to doing it. And then if they're asking for something totally crazy, you're like, we're not going to be able to do that.
I banned my sales guys for saying that. So when they were going to people, because it's like, anyone can do it. I could take any client in any industry and you just overpromise, and you'll get a sale more often than you want, because you're passionate and the kind of, and it's like, just Mark, if nothing was a problem, he loves my ideas, and it's you're using all the wrong kind of tactics to get the sale closed. And it's like, really the job's not about closing the sale, and that sounds like really strange to say that. It's closing the sale in a realistic expectations manner, because otherwise you've not closed a sale, you've closed a frickin' nightmare, and you're going to pay for it. And then more often than not, it's not us that are going to pay for it short term, it will be the team that pays for it short term. But longer term, it's then like what's going to happen in 6 months. Because really I want to kind of, I don't know if you watch Suits, you watch Suits with Harvey Specter, right? So if you look at what Harvey does, he takes on the winners, right? And he has 100% track record, but he's taking on the winners. So he's reviewing the case and he's going, that's a bad case, I don't want it. And I think that filtering process should also apply to business. If you look at something and you're thinking, my past experience, I could pull a blinder here. I know just the right things to do. There's a couple of really sort of obvious things, and I can get that client a return. Now, as long as I can kind of get that client without setting an unrealistic expectation and I go in and I smash it, they'll be a client for life. Whereas if I go in there and it's like, I don't know, that's hard, and he's got paper thin margins, and he thinks you just put 2 Instagram posts out and the business blows up, and you're like, but it's not realistic. But it's a hard conversation to have as well at times, because you can see there's like a tension there that can get across.
Because I'll be honest, the bad fit clients I've brought on has been because I was desperate for business at times. I was like, I need to get business on, I need to, I was on my own. I'll just say yes to any business. Yep. And I probably didn't go through that full process of discovery and really getting through the questions. They said, oh, can we get this? Can we be number one in Google? Yeah, we'll get you number one. We'll get you like,
I'll take the pain, I'll try and make it happen.
I'll try and make it happen. And then all that happens is you then get, because you've promised somebody something, you then get all this pain from the client that like, I'm paying for this and I'm not getting what I paid for. You said that I was going to get this, and then I'm not going to get it.
Good on your promise.
And it causes like so many issues. And I've had clients, Sunday nights, phoning like late Sunday night. I want this done right this minute. Even in evenings, like I'm taking the kids to like brownies or some sort of drama class or something. They're phoning. I expect you to like get this done as soon as jump and do it as soon as possible.
Doesn't matter. 11:00 at night.
It doesn't matter exactly. And then it's just constant messages all the way through, and then you get this whole kind of business anxiety, and then you also get some issues with it, and you're just not enjoying working with that client. And it's like I've had like abusive texts and all that sort of stuff, like why is this not being done for this time, and it literally is. It's because you've put yourself into that situation by not asking the question. So I do now ask the questions, and I do go through. I don't go, but we can definitely do that. I do go through these questions. There'll be some things that you're like, we'll say yes to. You're yes to, but you're like, I'm pretty sure we can do that. Like,
you say that, like,
not done it.
I'm pretty confident.
Not done it in like a, last 6 months.
I actually think you can just be honest with things like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, clients appreciate that more if you turn around and go, like, we've not quite done this, but I've done similar, so if it works like this. But you have to kind of say that, like, in the end of the day, you're not in control of their business model, so you can't really control what it is. Like, if I take, let's say, a can of Coke, and I say I sell cans of Coke for £50, doesn't matter how good a marketeer you are, it ain't going to sell, because I've actually priced out the norm. You might get people going like, I don't get it, why is it 50 quid? Now, you can maybe do that if you're like some kind of celebrity, you're kind of going like, it's my can of Coke or something, and you get it with like a signature and like you can do something like that. But out with that, it's not realistic to expect people to pay over the odds for something. But that often gets stemmed to marketing as if like that's the marketeer's fault. Yeah. When there is no mechanic or mechanism to say, but your pricing's nonsense. Yeah. Like, your pricing's just completely... Yeah. And it's, I think I can get £50 a can of Coke. And I'm like, cool, you're delusional. Yeah. But I don't really want to represent that brand thinking, if they're thinking that's kind of normal, what are they going to think about all the other stuff that I think is like kind of like that's unrealistic? And I think that's what's important when you go through that discovery, because I'll go through like, what's unique about the product. So they'll say, the product's just like this, so what's unique about yourself? So what's the price? Is it subscription based? How much is it cheaper? How do you make money from it? Is it promotion? Is that what you do? So you do sales promotion? Do you do discounts? Is it your distribution? Can you do it faster than people? I'm trying to find out, like, what is it? Why would people going to buy from you rather than buy from the other person? That's what most of my questions now are how are they currently getting success? Yeah. So I don't look at myself as magic beans. I look at myself as like an amplifier. Yeah. So if you're successful, I'll help you become more successful. Yeah. If you get online sales, I'll help you get more online sales. If you've got like a good website, I'll help you streamline it and get like a stronger proposition. So it's about enhancement, marginal gains, little things that you can do that are going to help progress. But I can't make someone that's a failure into success. Yeah. I can't make someone that's broke into a millionaire. Yeah. And that's not what I'm in business to do. Like, my job is to help amplify and take them further down the road. I want to make sure that they're getting a good ROI. So if they're spending like £1,000, I want to make sure that they're getting more than £1,000 worth of value back. Otherwise, why do it? But I can't make them guarantees like, that'll express itself as 1,500 in sales. It might not. It might be £1,000 and you get 10 grand in sales. It might be £1,000 and you get 700 back, but you get all this brand exposure which helps these type of sales happen or attracts the right type of staff. So I would say that that's like a big thing. And what's interesting is I'm revisiting a lot of these topics that we are talking about in my business just now, because I registered Hybrid Anchor like 6 months ago. So I'm getting this opportunity to kind of say, well, what do I want my company to actually be?
Yeah.
What do I want it to be? And when I looked at it, I said to Ali, I says, do you know what I really want this year? All I really want from it is I want everyone to experience a 5-star experience, and I don't want to onboard any clients that are a bad fit. I don't want to take on any staff that are going to give me freaking headaches and do their job. I don't want to deal with it. I want to deal with like a good solid foundation, and then year 2 we'll worry about scale up. And I think it's really worked quite well, because my eyes are kind of open to that. I've actually filtered away more clients in the last 6 months than I've done probably in the last 4 years combined, which sounds a bit kind of like steady on it. And of course we could use the extra revenue, because I know I could put that extra revenue to growth. But I'm actually kind of saying, like, I know that's a lot of money. Like I had one quite recently, big software project, massive, you know, it would have been a lot of money. But they were just kind of like, you know, they were obsessed by this is what they wanted to see in the sales process. And I'm like, that's not how we work. And they're going, yeah, if you just show us this. And I'm like, look, I can't show you that for this kind of reason. I can show you this, and I can understand if that's like a deal breaker and it's not a fit for you. And I sort of like pushed it out into the middle of the kind of room and allowed them to kind of decide. Now, they might kind of turn around and say, do you know what, we were actually trying to ask for things in the sales process that's not their kind of jam. Because I'm like, I don't sell generic software, we build bespoke software, so it's not really relevant for me to show, like say, a demo or I want to kind of show you our process and how we work and past examples. And I know for a fact it was like a kind of big valuable sale you're pushing away, but I also know myself, the last thing I want is like, you know, a low review or somebody that's not really happy. And when I've kind of went through the projects, like we launched Bold Concept Scotland 2 weeks ago, and at the tail end of that I was like, you know, what was your experience with the team, how did you feel? And I'm like, oh, it's amazing, it was this, it was that. I was like, I'd love to get a testimonial from you. And they're like, that's cool, like, you know, is there anything specific you would want us to kind of focus on? And I'm like, no, just be honest. I'm like, try not to be too brutal, you know, if it's good, just tell us what you liked about it. And I says, I'd rather it was genuine in your words. And that was purely because I'm so focused right now on making sure that there's a good client experience, because I think as soon as you get into that kind of, it's a slippery slope. I didn't quite make good on his kind of thing, you know, that's right, we did promise him we would do this for Friday, or, you know, he was expecting 2 leads a week, you know, we've only done 1, and I think it kind of like chips away at you, so your confidence erodes as well, and you're kind of thinking, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here, like, I'm meant to be good at this. And you're thinking, but it's because you've onboarded a bad fit. So it's nothing to do with you as a marketeer or me as a developer. It's purely to do with you've onboarded something that's kind of, you know, it's challenging. Like the guys try to sell Coke for 50 quid a can of Coke, and it's like, and then you're kind of going, why is this not working like the other clients? You know, and it's because of that kind of sense check. So I'm becoming much kind of quicker to filter away stuff that I'm thinking, that's crazy, you know.
Because I had it recently as well. I had one of the staff members like, why don't we do cold calling? And we found like a list of, you know, businesses, because we've got a piece of software. There's like 178 businesses in Glasgow, you know, scale up businesses. We'll just phone them all. And I'm like, that's not the good use of time, because first of all, I don't want you kind of cold calling and then you spend a lot of your time and you maybe get one person that's a little bit angry, but you're also just doing it to absolutely everyone that also might not be a fit. So what I said, I would rather you spend your time doing a bit of research, so maybe spending time on like 3 of the companies, or going through a spreadsheet and going, this is the sort of criteria that I'm looking for a business that's a good fit for me. So they need to do this, they need to be in this sector, they need to maybe have this many staff. Find all of that information out, then that's when we do it. And I wouldn't even do a cold call, we'd do something really clever in personalisation, you know, to try and get them as a client. And it's like picking the clients that you really want to then do business with. I think it's like, you know, and switching it around that way, rather than just trying to get business off everybody else. And then another point I was going to make as well is, when we were talking about it, is actually being truthful in the sales process. Now I've had this because you've got cowboys going, yep, of course we can do it. What happens is they go away month 2, month 3, they've not hit it. They generally then come back to you and go, I shouldn't have listened to you, Mark. You know, I went with somebody.
You were being realistic.
I went with somebody else. They said that they could do all that sort of stuff. They weren't realistic. They couldn't do it. Can we maybe speak again about, you know, what you can actually do? Right, what you could do for it. No, you're still a bad fit client.
You went with them. Can't work with them. You're damaged goods.
Yeah, but and that's when I kind of say, like, you know, be honest. And this is what I'm saying. It's like a trusted expert. That was the whole reason why I wanted to come into business, because of that trust issue. Because you do have the people that will just say, yeah, we can do that, or we've got all this experience doing that, and they don't have it. You know, they just be honest and say, we don't really have the experience of doing that, but, you know, we've had success, you know, elsewhere in a different industry, and it's worked. It'd be good to see if it can kind of work there. That's what I always do as well. Was like, I didn't, you know, we both do it. We don't lock people into long contracts.
Exactly.
It's a month rolling contract.
Just month rolling.
Month rolling contract.
If it doesn't work for you, no hard feelings.
And it's like, and it's both, and I do it in both ways. So you do it because you don't want to lock somebody into a contract and they go like that. There is a bad fit here. Like, we're not working well together. Cool. We'll move our separate ways.
I actually feel really fortunate now as well that, although I've got a smaller number of clients having just set up, I'm really happy with how those client relationships are. Mm-hmm. So like, if I ranked them all, I'd be like going, yeah, I think they're really strong relationships. Like, you know, if I pick up the phone, you're like, oh, you doing work?
Yeah,
it's like instant positivity. It's not like a, so how's this campaign going? You know,
how much
like,
money you want off me now?
Exactly. Like, so it's a kind of closer relationship, and clients have actually picked up on it. They're like, it's quite surprising how personalised you're kind of doing that, and secretly I kind of know that that's not scalable, right? I know I can't build hybrid anchor and be the face of the company and be the guy that they always deal with. So eventually I will need to start introducing other players, and this is my senior team and that kind of stuff. But for now, I'm thinking in startup mode where I'm kind of there, I want to kind of like really establish the brand and be, you know, like that. So it's like I'm checking in on the jobs every day, and it must be driving the staff batty, because I'm going, oh, how are we getting on with such? And they're like, well, the timesheets. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm not asking about the timesheet. Like, I know you're working on it. What I'm asking is, you know, when was the last time we reached out to a client? You know, are we communicating with them? How did they sound on the phone? And they're like, what do you mean, how did they sound on the phone? And I was like, I'm trying to build like a client experience. I want to have happy clients, and like when you're phoning up with the projects and stuff, like Anya actually had COVID quite recently and she was off, and I was thinking, oh my god, this is right in the middle of like a really important launch for the client. Bow Concept was meant to be going live, and I was kind of starting to panic, and I'm thinking, I don't want her to kind of like come back when she's feeling run down or not well, and I don't want the client to just feel abandoned. So I kind of phoned them up and I was like, look, can we get a meeting? And they're like, yeah. So we had the meeting, and I says, look, from like a client perspective, I just didn't want you guys to think that we weren't looking after you. Like, this is what's happened. I'll personally oversee the project. Desiree's going to step in for Anya. Like, we're going to work this out. You know, like we'll smooth this out, kind of thing. And I was expecting like a kind of, oh well, you know, what about this? And they were actually like, no, like, we're loving it. You know, like, it's great. Like, Desiree's already been in community, and I'm like, right, this is good. Yeah, this is good. And it's kind of like a big tick in the box, thinking, even without me saying anything, naturally the team has went into that caring mode. Yeah. And I don't think you can do that with a bad fit client. Yeah. It just becomes, it's too combative, because they're almost like, oh, what are you phoning me for, Mark? You know, all I care about, mate, is my leads. So shut up and do my leads. And you're like, wait, I don't want a relationship with that. I don't want a client to be like, exactly, like, you know, the only reason you should be phoning me is to tell me how many leads you got me. Yeah. And you're kind of thinking, why would you want that? Yeah. And it's like, I'm actually leaving now at night time happy, kind of thinking, you know, I'm quite proud actually, like the work we're doing and how we're dealing with the work and stuff. Whereas I have had it in the past when I've had kind of bad fit clients, and I'm thinking, you're just stressed out, and it's like extra weight on your shoulders where you're thinking, oh, there's that person ringing, and you're worried, and you're thinking this is going to be like a big fight. The staff, and it kind of puts an atmosphere into the studio. So how do you get out of a bad fit? How do you get out of that relationship? So I think if you've onboarded it, it's more like, so basically if you brought it into the sales funnel, everything you're doing is to basically strengthen that sale and get that sale over the line. So at some point, if you establish it in the sales process, you need to get it out the sales process, and then it's almost like you have to go the opposite way, like, how can I put the client off? But then that's where I think you stick to more the kind of values and the way you're kind of working. So the one I had quite recently, and I could see that they were like, you know, pick, and I'm like, right, I could basically solve all these kind of like objections, and they're not really objections or nitpicking, but I could basically solve all them. And I was like, no, what I'm going to do is do the opposite. I'm going to step into them and say, that's not how we work like this. And it's like, and this is why we work like this, and I can understand if that's not a good fit. So I just kept reinforcing if it's not a good fit, and then naturally they came to a situation where they went, oh, we decided not to go ahead, and you say, look, no hard feelings at all, and they say, we might come back to you, and I'm thinking, I hope you don't. It's like, I've kind of filtered it away softly. Now, I've had it the other way where, and I don't need to name names that kind of way, but they were really abusive to members of the team, and I'm thinking, I'm not having that, you know. So I just phoned them up and I says, listen, mate, that ain't going to happen. You're not going to talk to anyone in my team like that. It's like somewhere along the line you've kind of been told that business owners are just allowed to talk to people however they want. If that's how you treat suppliers, you know,
I think it's the way that they treat their own staff like that, and then they think so that yours is staff, and you're like, that's not your staff member, that's my staff member, so don't speak to them.
It's like, so we're an extension of your team, but if you're abusive to your team, I don't want to work with you. So like with that kind of way, you know, they're like really abusive, like kind of, I'm not talking about like physical, I'm talking about like just bullying and verbal and sort of like browbeating people. I've had the same thing. And I'm like, listen pal, it's no on. And they're like, tell me, and I'm like, I will call you pal. No, I mean, it's like, we will not work with you, I'll sever your contract and you'll be gone. And they're like, oh yeah, we can't do that, whatever it is. And I was like, well, I can, because I can literally take your hours and say there's a refund on your bike. And they're like, oh, this kind of way. And I was like, look, I'll break my back for you, try to help you, and the team will genuinely help you, but it is not in your interest if that team is not motivated to help you anyway. So if they're all sitting there thinking, oh, there's that person phoning, and it makes me angry, and it makes me upset that people treat people like that, and I'm like, I'm just not having it. It's like I'm sitting trying to build this culture, and then there's like all this kind of negativity, and they're like, nobody wants to work with that project, nobody wants to take it on, nobody wants to phone them, they know they're going to get absolute grief, and you're thinking, is it actually that good a client? And I've had it a few times where I analyse it and I'm going, right, we're maybe making, say, £300 net or something on that contract retainer or something like that, and I'm like, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? All this noise, all this HR, all these issues, I'm like, it's just not worth it. And just telling them, it's like an ultimatum in the sense of like, you know, we're not just cutting you off, I want to kind of have the conversation with you, and it's like, if you can change and can rein that back in, then you can kind of just be like a normal person, and remember that these are human beings and they actually don't deserve to be spoke to like that, then there'll be nothing said more about it. But if that continues, mate, that's it, you're done. Like, I'll literally phone you up and say, that's you're done, and we won't work with you anymore. I don't care if you offer me 10 grand a month or 10 grand an hour, you won't be working with us. And then I make sure the staff know that as well, in the sense of like, I will never allow somebody to do that to the team, because see, by me sort of just saying, oh well, it's a good client, and Mark, we kind of make quite a lot of money for them, so I know it's difficult, but you're like, well really, you're just saying it's alright for that guy to like verbally browbeat me or treat me like crap, and then the staff members think, I don't want to work here. You know, that's not what I thought Mark was like, and you're like, wait, what? No, I'm not like that, it's not me, it's him. And you're like, but it is you, because you're authorising it, you're allowing it to happen. Whereas if you kind of step up to it, they see that like he cares more about the staff than the money, and it's that kind of people over profit thing again, in the sense of, I will never allow that kind of like revenue to dictate to me how I should build and run my team.
Absolutely.
So those kind of ones, I have a firm kind of discussion. If it's more subtle than that, I think there's other ways of doing it. So I think you can kind of like amend the kind of like pricing, like we're going through a price increase, and filter away, and there's different things you can do to sort of like nudge them away into the kind of side row, and then you kind of go, oh look at that, they left, but, you know, sorry to see you leave, and you go, thank God. I know,
it's like that, I'm leaving, oh great, where are you going?
There you go, that's really unfortunate, where are you going? And it's like, we're moving to Market Mavens, or wherever they're going, and you're going like that, and you're going like kind of heads up, heads up, it's like inbound, mayday, big red light going. So yeah, no, it's a really interesting topic actually about bad fit clients. So what would be your belter then? Like, what's the one piece of advice you give someone about dealing with a bad fit client?
My one piece of advice would be make sure that you take. I think I've only learned because I've had red flags, and now I've actually fixed it into my process of figuring out a bad fit client. Now it's probably a little bit different. So you might have a listener here that, you know, has a bad customer that's like, you know, signed up for a hotel or whatever. But there is always signs from the very, very start where they ask certain questions or they're doing certain things. I think ultimately this is where you have to get the expectations in. So you have to communicate from the very, very start, this is what we can do and this is what we won't do and this is what we won't put up with. It's even, you know, there is a, you know, in a service based, there's like service level agreements. Maybe having something like a service level agreement in place, this is what we do. We work night, you know, I put it in my sort of rate card and things like that.
Contactable hours and stuff.
Contactable hours, this is what you're doing, so that they don't go, you know, contact you, you know, crazy times on a Saturday morning. And then if they do, then you've got it in there that actually it's going to be it's overtime or what they're going to have to spend extra because it's not part of the manageable hours. So that would be my business belter, is like manage expectations and make sure that you communicate the expectations from the very start before they even become a customer.
Yeah, mine would be, don't onboard a customer if you have any kind of concern. So if it keeps into your head that you go, that's quite a strange way they answered that, or I didn't like how I felt in that scenario. Another good technique to do is when you do eventually, you know, fire a client, think back to like what their traits were, what revealed them as a bad client, what did they say, how did they talk about the contract, how did they talk about how they were going to work together, because there'll be little tells that they say. Like I can spot it a mile away when you go, this guy's not a team player, he's a very take orientated person rather than a, you know, we're in this for the win-win. So it's like, I believe that if I'm your client, market mavens should do well, but also I should do well because we're working together in partnership. So it's much more about collaborating than get my graphics made, mate. Why are they made? You know, it's kind of like one of them's like subservient, like you are a graphic slave or a marketing slave, rather than this is actually, I'm coming to you because I respect your experience. I know I'm brilliant at selling breakfast rolls, but you're amazing at, you know, doing the market and making it look exciting. That's why it's a partnership. I do what I do, you do what you do. So I would say that, like, try to look for the tells and keep a record of them and have that internal as a filter. Remember that not every sale is something you should convert, and try to resist the sort of like it's money at the end of the day, because it's never worth it, like for the stress. And in actual fact, you probably lose a lot more for the jobs than you realise, because if it affects your mindset, you'll lose sales without even kind of
absolutely
realising that. So yeah, just want to wrap up there then. If you have a bad fit client, hopefully you don't, but if you do have one, then by all means use some of the kind of techniques that we spoke about on the podcast today. We're kind of getting through these topics. It's been quite interesting, good range of kind of topics coming up. We've been getting a few suggestions for things coming through from you guys, so thank you very much for doing that. I know we ask about it every week, feels like we bang the same drum, but we are genuinely interested in creating content for you guys. If you enjoy the show, please do subscribe. We're trying to get our YouTube counter up. We're trying to get more people to discover the show organically. The best way to do that is, it's a massive help to us, just stick a comment in about something you like about the episode, like it, and maybe consider sharing it on your channel. The more kind of traffic that we get to here, the more me and Mark are kind of motivated to do it, although I think we would do it anyway. All that's really left to say is it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from him. Thank you.
See you next week, guys.